If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Sharing it with your friends and family helps spread knowledge. And when we help others grow, we grow too. Thank you so much for listening. Let's dive into the podcast. Chapter 1, The Debt Wake-Up Call. Part 1, Facing the Numbers. When financial planner Dave Ramsey started teaching people to face their debt, he discovered something startling. Most clients had no idea how much they actually owed. One woman broke down crying when she realized her credit card balances totaled $47,000, money she thought was closer to $20,000. The avoidance game we play with our finances creates a dangerous fog. Like checking your weight after months of avoiding the scale, confronting your debt feels terrifying. But here's what debt counselors know. The fear of the unknown is almost always worse than the reality itself. Sarah, a marketing manager from Denver, spent 3 years making minimum payments without tracking her balances. She finally sat down with her statements one Sunday afternoon. The total was $23,400 across 5 cards. Seeing it written down was like turning on the lights in a dark room, she recalls. Suddenly, I could see the monster clearly, and it wasn't as big as I'd imagined. Your financial audit doesn't require complicated software or accounting degrees. Start with a simple notebook or spreadsheet. List every debt: credit cards, student loans, car payments, personal loans, money borrowed from family. Next to each, write 3 numbers: the total balance, minimum monthly payment, and interest rate. This exercise reveals patterns invisible when debts live scattered across different statements and due dates. Many people discover they're paying 24% interest on one card while making extra payments on a 6% student loan. The math suddenly becomes clear. Take Michael, a teacher who realized he was paying $340 monthly across 6 different debts. When he calculated the numbers, he found that reorganizing his payments could save him $180 per month and 18 months of payments. The same money working smarter. Your interest rates tell a story about priority. Credit cards charging 19 to 29% annually are financial emergencies disguised as monthly bills. Meanwhile, federal student loans at 3 to 6% can wait while you attack the high-interest debt eating your income. Don't get overwhelmed by the total. Focus on the monthly cash flow first. How much are you sending to creditors each month? That number represents money that could be yours again with the right strategy. The hardest part isn't the math, it's the honesty. Many people inflate their income and underestimate their spending when calculating their debt capacity. Be ruthlessly accurate. Round your income down and expenses up. Financial recovery begins with truth, not wishful thinking. Once you see the complete picture, something shifts. The chaos becomes a project. The overwhelming becomes manageable. You're no longer avoiding reality. You're planning to change it. This clarity transforms your relationship with money, from avoidance to engagement, setting the foundation for every strategic decision that follows. Part 2. Changing the money conversation. When Sarah opened her first credit card statement in college, her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Money doesn't grow on trees. Yet somehow, she'd inherited the same financial anxiety that kept her parents awake at night, despite earning more than they ever did. The conversation about money that shapes our lives often happens without words. It's transmitted through worried glances, hushed arguments, and the emotional weight carried around financial decisions. Your relationship with money began long before you understood compound interest or minimum payments. Researchers at Cambridge University found that money habits are typically formed by age 7, shaped by observing how our families handle financial stress, celebrate windfalls, or avoid difficult conversations about spending. These early impressions become the invisible scripts that guide adult financial behavior, often in ways we don't recognize. Consider how Tiffany Alish, financial educator and author, discovered her own inherited money story. Raised by parents who lived through financial hardship, she learned that discussing money was uncomfortable and potentially dangerous. It might invite bad luck or judgment. This silence around money matters, while well-intentioned, created a pattern of financial avoidance that followed her into adulthood. Only when she consciously examined these inherited beliefs could she begin changing them. The language we use about debt reveals these deep-seated beliefs. Do you describe yourself as bad with money or say you can't afford things when you actually mean you're choosing to prioritize differently? These phrases carry emotional weight that extends far beyond the numbers on bank statements. When Gerald Mundis worked with people struggling with debt through Debtors Anonymous principles, he noticed that shame-based self-talk created cycles of financial self-sabotage. Dave Ramsey observed this phenomenon repeatedly in his financial counseling. People who viewed debt as a moral failing rather than a mathematical problem often made emotional spending decisions that worsened their situation. The guilt and shame became additional burdens that made clear thinking about solutions nearly impossible. Changing this conversation requires deliberate effort. Start by examining the money messages you received growing up. Did your family view debt as shameful or as a normal part of life? Was financial success celebrated or viewed with suspicion? These early lessons create the emotional foundation for how you handle money today. Gail Vaz Oxlade emphasized the importance of shifting from judgment to curiosity when examining financial behavior. Instead of asking, "Why am I so bad with money?" try, "What circumstances led to these spending patterns?" This reframing creates space for learning rather than self-condemnation. The most powerful shift happens when you begin separating your worth as a person from your net worth as a financial entity. Your debt represents past decisions and circumstances, not your character or future potential. This distinction allows you to approach debt payoff as a practical problem-solving exercise rather than an emotional battleground. Part 3. Why Debt Freedom Matters. When Dave Ramsey counseled a mother who hadn't slept through the night in 3 years, her insomnia wasn't caused by a crying baby. Financial anxiety kept her awake, calculating minimum payments and wondering how long the credit cards could sustain another month. Within 6 months of starting her debt elimination plan, she reported sleeping soundly again. Her debt hadn't disappeared, but something more powerful had emerged. Hope backed by a concrete plan. The real cost of debt extends far beyond interest payments and monthly minimums. Research from Northwestern Mutual reveals that 44% of Americans lose sleep over financial concerns, with debt ranking as the primary source of stress. This chronic worry doesn't exist in isolation. It seeps into relationships, career decisions, and physical health. Melanie Hansen's studies at the Education Data Initiative found that couples arguing about money are 30% more likely to divorce, with debt-related disagreements topping the list of financial conflicts. Consider Sarah Thompson, a marketing executive who stayed in a toxic work environment for 4 additional years because her credit card payments demanded her full salary. When she finally eliminated her debt, she discovered something remarkable. Freedom isn't just about money, it's about choices. Within months of becoming debt-free, she launched the consulting practice she dreamed about but never dared attempt while chained to monthly obligations. Your personal motivation for debt freedom might look entirely different. Perhaps you want to model financial responsibility for your children. Maybe you're tired of declining dinner invitations because your budget can't handle restaurant prices. Or you might dream of taking that photography class, switching careers, or simply experiencing the peace that comes from opening your mailbox without dread. Vicki Robin, co-author of Your Money or Your Life, discovered her deepest motivation came from calculating how many hours of life energy each debt payment represented. When she realized her car payment consumed 20 hours of work monthly, the abstract concept of debt became tangible. She was trading life for stuff she'd already consumed. The psychological transformation that accompanies debt elimination often surprises people. Tiffany Alich describes clients who initially focused purely on numbers but discovered that debt freedom restored their sense of personal power. They stopped making decisions from fear and started choosing based on values and dreams. What would you do if debt payments weren't consuming your income? The question isn't hypothetical. It's a planning tool. When you identify your specific motivations, they become emotional fuel during difficult moments. Write them down. Make them concrete. The woman who wants to travel will calculate exactly how much her minimum payments would cover in vacation expenses. The parent dreaming of homeownership will research mortgage requirements and savings timelines. Your reasons for wanting debt freedom are unique, but they share common themes: reduced anxiety, increased options, and the profound relief that comes from aligning your spending with your values rather than your obligations. Part 4. The Power of Small Wins. When Amy Martinez made her first $50 payment toward her smallest credit card balance, her husband rolled his eyes. "Why not tackle the big one first?" he asked, pointing to their $18,000 car loan. Amy couldn't explain the logic then, but 6 months later, as she celebrated paying off her fourth small debt, the strategy's brilliance became clear. Her confidence had transformed from tentative hope into unshakable determination. The human brain craves evidence of progress. Psychologist Dr. Teresa Amabila's research at Harvard Business School revealed that people who experience small, meaningful wins at work report higher motivation and creativity than those focused solely on major milestones. This same principle applies powerfully to debt elimination. When you pay off that $340 store credit card or eliminate a $150 medical bill, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical that reinforces positive behaviors. Dave Ramsey built his financial empire on this insight through the debt snowball method. Instead of targeting the highest interest rates first, you attack the smallest balances. Mathematics might suggest paying the 18% credit card before the 6% student loan, but psychology trumps math when building sustainable habits. Ramsey has guided millions through this approach because small victories create emotional momentum that pure logic cannot match. Consider Maria Santos, a teacher from Phoenix who started with 7 debts totaling $43,000. Her smallest debt was an $89 gym membership fee she'd been avoiding. When she finally paid it off, something shifted. "I felt like I could breathe again," she told financial blogger Michelle Schroeder-Gardner. "If I could handle that one, maybe I could handle the next one too." Within 3 years, Maria eliminated all her consumer debt. The key lies in celebration. Each paid-off debt deserves recognition, whether it's $50 or $5,000. Tiffany Alish, known as the Budget Nista, recommends creating a visual tracker, crossing off debts on a chart, or moving coins from a debt jar to a freedom jar. These tangible markers make progress feel real. Track milestones beyond final payoffs too. Celebrate reaching halfway points, making 3 consecutive on-time payments, or reducing your total debt by $1,000. Erin Lowry, author of Broke Millennial, suggests rewarding yourself with free activities, a nature hike, library book, or home movie night that don't derail your progress. The compound effect extends beyond individual debts. As you eliminate smaller balances, you free up minimum payments to attack the next target. Your $25 monthly payment on that store card now joins forces with your $85 minimum payment on the next debt, creating a $110 monthly assault. This mathematical acceleration feels magical, but it's simply small wins compounding. Self-doubt dissolves when you have evidence of success. Each eliminated debt becomes proof that you can change your financial future. That proof transforms "I hope I can do this" into "I know I can do this." This psychological shift matters more than perfect spreadsheets or optimal interest rate calculations. Progress builds confidence, and confidence builds progress. Chapter 2. Building Your Escape Plan. Part 1. Mapping Out Your Money Life. When Sarah Chen opened her credit card statement in her studio apartment, her hands shook. She'd been avoiding this moment for weeks, but the $47,000 in combined debt couldn't hide forever. Like millions of Americans, Sarah had fallen into the trap of managing money in her head rather than on paper. Research from the Federal Reserve shows that 40% of Americans can't cover a $400 emergency, yet most have never created a detailed spending plan. The truth about budgeting might surprise you. It's not about restricting yourself or becoming a spreadsheet master. It's about finally seeing where your money actually goes versus where you think it goes. Dave Ramsey discovered this gap when counseling thousands of families through Financial Peace University. People consistently underestimated their spending by 20 to 30%, particularly on small, frequent purchases. Think of your money like water flowing through your hands. Without a container, it simply disappears. Your budget becomes that container, but it doesn't need to be complicated. Start with 3 simple categories: needs, wants, and debt payments. Needs include rent, utilities, groceries, and minimum debt payments. Wants cover everything else you choose to spend money on. Sarah began tracking every dollar for 2 weeks using nothing more than a small notebook. She discovered she was spending $180 monthly on coffee shops and takeout lunches. This wasn't about judgment, it was about awareness. "I had no idea," she later told me during our interview. "I thought I was maybe spending $50. Visual tools work because our brains process images faster than numbers. Create a simple pie chart showing your spending categories. Use different colored pens in a journal. Draw bars representing your debt balances. Tiffany Alish, author of Get Good with Money, encourages clients to photograph their debt statements and create a visual debt map on their wall. The key is making this process feel manageable rather than overwhelming. Start with round numbers and estimates. If your rent is $147, call it $1,250 in your budget. Perfect accuracy matters less than consistent tracking. Gail Vaz Oxlade proved this through her television show, where families achieved dramatic turnarounds using basic budgeting tools. Many people resist budgeting because they fear discovering how bad things really are. But knowledge creates power. When you can see patterns clearly, you can change them. Sarah realized her weekend grocery shopping while hungry led to 40 to 60 trips instead of planned $80 weekly shops. Your money map shouldn't feel like punishment. It should feel like gaining control over something that previously controlled you. Once you see the full picture, you can make intentional choices about where to cut back and where to invest in paying down debt faster. The goal isn't perfection. It's progress and awareness that creates lasting change. Part 2. The Debt Snowball Adventure. When Dave Ramsey first suggested paying off the smallest debt first rather than the highest interest rate, financial experts called him mathematically incorrect. Yet thousands of people were getting out of debt faster than ever before. The secret wasn't in the numbers, it was in the psychology of momentum. Think of debt payoff like training for a marathon. You don't start by running 26 miles on day one. You build endurance through smaller victories that prove you can go the distance. The debt snowball method works the same way. By targeting your smallest balance first, you create quick wins that fuel your motivation for the longer journey ahead. Here's how Michelle from Portland discovered this power. She had 5 debts totaling $47,000, an $800 medical bill, $2,400 credit card, $6,500 car loan, $12,000 student loan, and $25,300 in mortgage. Traditional advice said tackle the highest interest rate first, her credit card at 22%. Instead, she threw every extra dollar at that $800 medical bill. Within 6 weeks, it was gone. Something magical happened when Michelle made that final payment. She called her husband at work, practically shouting with excitement. For the first time in years, she felt powerful instead of powerless. That emotional momentum carried her through the next debt, then the next. Within 3 years, she was completely debt-free except her mortgage. The avalanche method, paying highest interest first, makes mathematical sense. You'll pay less money overall. But humans aren't calculators. We need emotional fuel to sustain difficult changes over months or years. Research from Harvard Business School confirms that people who experience early wins in goal achievement are significantly more likely to persist through challenges. Consider your personality when choosing your approach. Are you motivated by seeing progress quickly, even if it costs more in interest? Choose the snowball. Do you prefer optimal efficiency and can stay motivated without frequent victories? The avalanche might suit you better. Real success stories include setbacks. Tom from Chicago paid off 4 small debts in 8 months. Then his transmission failed. $3,200 repair. He felt defeated, like he was back to square one. But because he'd already built the habit of aggressive debt payment and experienced those early wins, he recovered faster than expected. The momentum wasn't lost, just temporarily interrupted. Some people create hybrid approaches. Sarah prioritized small debts under $1,000 for quick wins, then switched to highest interest rates for larger balances. The key is starting with what feels manageable and builds confidence. Your debt payoff strategy should match your emotional needs as much as your financial situation. Whether you choose snowball, avalanche, or something in between, the method that keeps you consistently taking action beats the theoretically perfect approach you abandon after 2 months. Each paid-off debt becomes a milestone proving you can change your financial future. That proof becomes the foundation for every victory that follows. Part 3. Hacks I Wish I Knew Sooner. When Marcus discovered he could call his credit card company and simply ask for a lower interest rate, he kicked himself for waiting 3 years. One 15-minute phone call dropped his rate from 22% to 16%, saving him over $800 annually. Sometimes the most powerful strategies hide in plain sight, waiting for someone brave enough to pick up the phone. The art of negotiation extends far beyond interest rates. Credit card companies often waive annual fees for customers who threaten to cancel. Jessica from Portland called her bank after receiving a competing offer and watched them eliminate her $95 annual fee instantly. Banks spend hundreds acquiring new customers, making retention far cheaper than replacement. When you call, speak to the retention department directly. They hold the real power to make deals. Loan consolidation deserves careful consideration, not automatic acceptance. When done correctly, it simplifies payments and potentially reduces rates. However, federal student loan consolidation eliminates certain forgiveness programs permanently. Rachel consolidated her private loans through a credit union, reducing her rate from 8.5% to 5.5%, but kept federal loans separate to preserve income-driven repayment options. Automation transforms good intentions into consistent action. Set up automatic transfers the day after payday, treating debt payments like non-negotiable bills. Mike automated $200 weekly transfers to his highest interest debt, eliminating the temptation to spend that money elsewhere. When the payment happens without conscious decision-making, emotional spending cannot interfere. Side hustles accelerate progress when approached strategically. Focus on skills you already possess rather than learning entirely new trades. Jennifer, a teacher, tutored students online for $30 hourly, earning an extra $600 monthly that went straight to debt. Tom drove for ride-sharing services during weekend evenings, generating $400 monthly while listening to financial podcasts. The key is choosing something sustainable that fits your schedule. Community resources often remain underutilized. Local credit unions frequently offer debt consolidation loans at rates banks cannot match. Nonprofit credit counseling agencies provide free debt management plans, negotiating with creditors on your behalf. Library financial workshops teach budgeting skills without cost. Food banks reduce grocery expenses, freeing money for debt payments without sacrificing nutrition. The balance transfer game requires precision timing. Moving high-interest debt to 0% promotional cards creates breathing room, but only if you resist accumulating new debt on cleared cards. Set calendar reminders for promotional rate expirations and have transition plans ready. Some people cycle through multiple promotional offers, but this strategy demands discipline and careful credit score monitoring. Tax refunds represent annual debt elimination opportunities many squander on discretionary purchases. Treating refunds as debt payments rather than windfalls can eliminate months of interest charges. Consider adjusting withholdings to increase monthly take-home pay, directing that extra cash toward debt instead of giving the government an interest-free loan. Creative problem-solving often beats conventional wisdom. Some people use cashback credit cards for fixed expenses like utilities, immediately transferring cash rewards to debt payments. Others sell possessions they forgot they owned, discovering hundreds of dollars in closets and garages. The fastest debt freedom stories combine multiple strategies simultaneously, creating momentum that compounds over time. Part 4. Tackling Traps and Setbacks. When Sarah Martinez hit her credit limit while buying groceries, she realized her carefully crafted debt plan had completely derailed. 3 months into her journey toward financial freedom, an unexpected car repair bill had triggered a cascade of poor decisions that left her feeling like a complete failure. This scenario plays out thousands of times daily across America. Research from the Federal Reserve shows that 40% of Americans cannot cover a $400 emergency without borrowing money. More telling, studies tracking debt repayment journeys reveal that 78% of people experience significant setbacks within their first year of attempting debt elimination. The difference between those who eventually succeed and those who abandon their efforts isn't financial sophistication or income level. It's understanding that setbacks are part of the process, not evidence of personal failure. Marcus Williams learned this lesson after his third attempt at becoming debt-free. The first 2 times, unexpected medical bills sent him spiraling back into old spending patterns. "I thought each setback meant I was hopeless with money," he recalls. "The third time, I prepared for obstacles instead of pretending they wouldn't happen." The most successful debt eliminators create what financial counselors call setback scripts before they need them. When your washing machine breaks or your child needs emergency dental work, having predetermined responses prevents panic-driven decisions. Instead of reaching for credit cards, you might pause and ask, "What's the minimum I need to handle this situation?" Often, a $200 repair quote becomes a $50 temporary fix that buys time to save properly. Emotional setbacks prove equally challenging. The shame spiral that follows overspending can derail progress for months. Dave Ramsey's research shows that people who treat their debt journey like rehabilitation rather than punishment recover from setbacks 40% faster. This means viewing slip-ups as learning opportunities rather than moral failures. Creating a dragon list helps identify your personal triggers before they strike. Write down situations that typically lead to overspending: stress at work, social pressure, boredom, or relationship conflicts. Next to each trigger, write one specific action you'll take instead of spending. This simple exercise transforms unconscious reactions into conscious choices. The fastest recovery strategy involves the 24-hour rule. After any financial setback, give yourself exactly 1 day to feel frustrated. Then recalculate your timeline, adjust your plan if necessary, and move forward. Sarah Martinez used this approach when her grocery store moment happened. She revised her debt snowball timeline by 3 months, increased her emergency fund goal, and ultimately paid off $47,000 in debt within 2 years. Physical reminders help maintain perspective during difficult moments. Keep a photo of your financial goal in your wallet where credit cards used to live. Whether it's your dream home, a vacation destination, or simply the peace of mind that comes with financial freedom, visual cues redirect focus from immediate frustration to long-term vision. Remember that resilience, not perfection, determines success. Every person who achieved lasting debt freedom stumbled multiple times along the way. The key lies in getting back up faster each time, armed with better strategies and deeper self-knowledge. Chapter 3. Rewriting Your Money Habits. Part 1. Spending Smarter Without Sacrifice. When Netflix cut their spending on licensed content by 80% in 2020 and redirected funds to original programming, they discovered something remarkable. Customers stayed loyal while their costs plummeted. The lesson translates perfectly to personal finance. Smart spending isn't about cutting everything you love, but about making strategic choices that create more joy per dollar. Sarah, a teacher from Manchester, thought debt freedom meant surviving on beans and toast. Instead, she learned to distinguish between spending that made her genuinely happy and purchases that simply filled time. She kept her monthly coffee dates with friends but canceled the gym membership she never used. Her debt payments increased by £200 monthly, while her satisfaction actually improved. The difference between mindful spending and deprivation lies in awareness. Research from Cambridge University shows that people who track their spending for just 1 week identify an average of £150 in monthly money leaks. Subscriptions they forgot about, convenience purchases that add up, or impulse buys that create temporary pleasure but lasting regret. Consider the 24-hour rule that transformed Marcus's finances. This London accountant realized he spent £300 monthly on tech gadgets he barely used. By waiting a full day before any non-essential purchase above £50, he discovered that 70% of his impulses faded naturally. The money that once disappeared into clutter now accelerates his mortgage payments. The most successful debt-free journeys involve what behavioral economists call structured flexibility. Rachel from Edinburgh created spending rules that felt like self-care rather than restrictions. She allocated £100 monthly for dining out, but committed to cooking Sunday meal prep sessions. This approach reduced her food costs by 40% while maintaining the social experiences she valued most. Free and low-cost alternatives often provide more lasting satisfaction than expensive impulses. David, a graphic designer, replaced his 40-pound weekend cinema habit with neighborhood walks and library visits. He discovered local history trails, attended free museum events, and joined a hiking group. His entertainment costs dropped to nearly zero, while his social circle expanded significantly. The no-spend challenge becomes powerful when reframed as discovery rather than deprivation. During a month-long challenge, participants from various backgrounds reported finding forgotten hobbies, strengthening relationships through home-based activities, and developing creativity in problem-solving. The temporary constraint revealed how much happiness already existed within their current resources. Successful spenders create automatic systems that eliminate decision fatigue. They set up separate accounts for different purposes, use cash envelopes for variable expenses, and schedule regular financial check-ins. These structures remove the daily struggle of resisting temptation by making good choices effortless. The journey toward debt freedom becomes sustainable when you view smart spending as an act of self-respect rather than self-denial. Every thoughtful purchase decision represents choosing your future freedom over temporary impulses, creating momentum that builds naturally over time. Part 2. Growing your income creatively. Sarah Martinez was earning barely enough to cover rent when she started selling her handmade jewelry at weekend markets. Within 6 months, her side hustle generated an extra £800 monthly, money that transformed her debt repayment timeline from years to months. Research from the Federal Reserve shows that 40% of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency, yet many possess untapped skills worth significantly more than they realize. Your current income represents just one stream in a potential river of earnings. The most successful debt eliminators understand that increasing income often provides faster results than cutting expenses alone. While trimming costs has natural limits, your earning potential remains virtually boundless. Start by conducting an honest inventory of your existing skills. Can you write clearly? Thousands of small businesses need content creators. Do you have a reliable car? Food delivery platforms consistently seek drivers during peak hours. Are you organized? Virtual assistant work offers flexible scheduling around your primary job. The gig economy has democratized income generation in ways previous generations couldn't imagine. Consider Marcus Thompson, a postal worker who leveraged his photography hobby into wedding bookings worth £15,000 annually. He didn't quit his day job or invest in expensive equipment. Instead, he started with friends' events, built a portfolio through social media, and gradually raised his rates as demand increased. His approach demonstrates how hobbies often hide profitable potential waiting to be monetized. The psychological shift from employee to entrepreneur requires recalibrating your relationship with risk. Many people fear asking for raises or launching side ventures because they equate security with staying in familiar territory. However, debt itself represents the ultimate financial insecurity. Every additional pound earned accelerates your journey toward genuine stability. When approaching your current employer about increased compensation, prepare thoroughly. Document your contributions, research market rates, and present a compelling case based on value delivered rather than personal financial needs. Companies respond to performance metrics, not sob stories about debt struggles. For those hesitant about entrepreneurial ventures, start small with minimal risk. Sell unused items cluttering your home through online marketplaces. Offer services you already provide informally, like pet sitting or tutoring neighborhood children. These low-stakes experiments build confidence while generating immediate cash flow. The compound effect of additional income surprises most people. An extra £200 monthly might seem modest, but applied to debt repayment, it represents £2,400 annually, potentially years of interest savings on credit cards or loans. This acceleration creates psychological momentum that motivates further income-generating activities. Technology has eliminated traditional barriers to earning additional money. Platforms connect service providers with customers instantly, handling payment processing and marketing. The challenge isn't finding opportunities, it's choosing which ones align with your schedule, skills, and debt elimination timeline. Every successful debt eliminator eventually realizes that earning more money requires thinking differently about their value in the marketplace. You possess unique combinations of skills, experiences, and insights that others will pay to access. The question isn't whether you can increase your income, it's how quickly you're willing to start. Part 3. Taming Temptation. When Gail Vaz-Oxlade studied couples in financial crisis, she discovered something startling. 90% could identify exactly what triggered their spending binges, yet they continued falling into the same traps repeatedly. The gap between knowing and doing becomes the difference between debt freedom and lifelong financial struggle. Your brain processes spending decisions in milliseconds, often before conscious thought kicks in. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio's research shows that emotional centers fire first, creating powerful impulses that rational thinking struggles to override. This explains why someone can perfectly understand their budget, yet find themselves clicking Buy Now on Amazon at 2 a.m. after a stressful day. The most dangerous triggers hide in plain sight. Tiffany Elish calls them invisible money drains, the subscription services you forgot about, the convenience purchases that seem harmless, the social pressure to keep up with friends' lifestyles. Dave Ramsey's surveys reveal that people underestimate their emotional spending by an average of 40%. That morning coffee during stressful meetings, the online shopping while watching TV, the grocery store trips when hungry, these seemingly small decisions compound into major setbacks. Environmental cues prove particularly powerful. Retail stores spend millions studying how music tempo, lighting, and product placement influence purchasing decisions. Your phone buzzes with notifications from shopping apps precisely when algorithms predict you're most vulnerable. Even walking past certain stores can trigger automatic responses learned over years of shopping habits. The solution isn't willpower, it's systems. Gerald Mundis, whose methods help thousands through Debtors Anonymous, advocates the pause principle. When you feel the urge to spend, commit to waiting 24 hours for purchases under £100, 1 week for larger amounts. This simple delay allows rational thought to catch up with emotional impulses. Create friction between impulse and action. Remove shopping apps from your phone's home screen. Unsubscribe from promotional emails. Leave credit cards at home when running errands. Pete Matthews suggests the envelope question. Before any purchase, ask yourself which budget envelope this money comes from and what you'll sacrifice to afford it. Replace destructive habits with constructive alternatives. When stress triggers spending urges, have a prepared list. Call a friend, take a walk, organize a drawer, or practice the breathing technique that actually addresses the underlying emotion. Erin Lowry discovered that her shopping impulses disappeared when she started channeling that energy into side hustles that generated income instead of draining it. Accountability transforms good intentions into lasting change. Share your triggers with someone who understands your goals. Ramit Sethi recommends texting a trusted friend before any unplanned purchase over £50. The simple act of explaining the decision to another person often reveals its emotional rather than logical foundation. Progress matters more than perfection. If you slip up, analyze what happened without judgment. What emotion preceded the purchase? What environmental factors contributed? How might you handle similar situations differently? Each relapse becomes valuable data for strengthening your system rather than evidence of personal failure. Part 4. Celebrating progress. When marathon runner Beth Anderson crossed the finish line at Boston, she didn't just keep running to her car. She stopped, smiled, and soaked in the moment she'd trained 3 years to achieve. The same principle applies to your debt journey. Research from Harvard Business School shows that people who celebrate small wins are 31% more productive and stay motivated 37% longer than those who only acknowledge major achievements. Your brain craves recognition for effort, not just results. When you make an extra payment on your credit card or successfully complete a no-spend week, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical that fuels addiction, but now working in your favor. Dave Ramsey built his entire debt snowball method around this concept. Paying off the smallest debt first might not be mathematically optimal, but it creates momentum through celebration that keeps people going when larger debts feel overwhelming. Sarah, a teacher from Manchester, discovered this when she paid off her first £800 store card. Instead of immediately tackling the next debt, she spent £5 on a fancy coffee and called her sister to share the news. That tiny celebration gave her the emotional fuel to attack her 3,200-pound car loan with renewed energy. She finished her entire debt journey 8 months ahead of schedule. The key lies in proportional celebration. Small wins deserve small rewards. Gail Vaz-Oxlade suggests the 1% rule. Celebrate with something worth roughly 1% of the achievement. Paid off £1,000? A £10 celebration meal fits perfectly. Completed your first debt-free month? Maybe a £20 experience you've been wanting. Free celebrations often carry more meaning than expensive ones. Share your milestone on social media. Take a photo of your paid-off statement. Write yourself a congratulatory letter to read during tough moments ahead. These cost nothing but create lasting emotional anchors. The Meaningful Money Handbook emphasizes tracking visible progress. Create a debt thermometer on your fridge, coloring in sections as balances decrease. Watch your mortgage balance drop below certain thresholds. These visual cues trigger natural celebration moments and keep momentum alive during long repayment stretches. Avoid celebration traps that derail progress. A £2,000 vacation to celebrate paying off £5,000 in debt defeats the purpose. Instead, plan meaningful experiences within your boundaries. Erin Lowry, author of Broke Millennial, celebrates debt milestones by trying free museum days or hiking new trails, experiences that create memories without creating new financial stress. Your celebration style should match your personality. If you're social, host a potluck dinner announcing your achievement. If you prefer solitude, treat yourself to an afternoon reading in your favorite park. The celebration must feel authentic to maintain its motivational power. Remember, you're rewiring decades of money habits. Each celebration reinforces new neural pathways that associate financial discipline with positive emotions rather than deprivation. This psychological shift transforms debt repayment from punishment into personal victory, making long-term success significantly more achievable. Chapter 4. Staying Free and Moving Forward. Part 1. Setting Up for Success. When Marie Curie discovered radium, she didn't just celebrate the breakthrough and walk away. She spent years developing processes to extract it safely and consistently. Financial freedom works the same way. The moment you pay off that final debt isn't the finish line. It's when the real work of staying free begins. Building financial immunity requires systems that work automatically, even when life gets messy. David Bach, author of The Automatic Millionaire, proved this when he helped hundreds of families save over $1 million by automating just $10 daily transfers. The magic wasn't in the amount, it was in removing human decision-making from the equation. Start with what financial experts call the pay yourself first principle. Set up automatic transfers on payday before you can spend the money elsewhere. Even $25 weekly builds a $1,300 buffer within a year. This isn't about restriction. It's about creating breathing room for when the water heater breaks or your car needs new tires. Regular money check-ins prevent small problems from becoming major crises. Schedule monthly 15-minute reviews, just like you would a doctor's appointment. Review your spending categories, check your emergency fund balance, and scan for any unusual patterns. Financial planner Sue Zorman calls these money dates with yourself. Brief but crucial conversations about where you stand. Life changes are debt's favorite hunting ground. Job transitions often trigger spending sprees as people celebrate new positions or cope with unemployment stress. When software engineer Sarah Chen received a promotion, she immediately upgraded her apartment and car, adding $800 monthly to her expenses. Within 6 months, she was back in debt despite earning 30% more. The solution is the lifestyle inflation buffer. When income increases, allocate only 50% to lifestyle improvements and direct the remainder to savings. If you get a $400 monthly raise, increase spending by $200 and save $200. This approach lets you enjoy progress while maintaining financial security. Family additions require particular attention. The USDA estimates raising a child costs $267,000 through age 18. Smart parents start preparing financially before conception, building dedicated funds for childcare, medical expenses, and lost income during parental leave. Geographic moves present hidden financial traps. Beyond obvious costs like deposits and moving trucks, Relocations often involve temporary hotel stays, eating out more frequently, and replacing items that don't fit new spaces. Research by Allied Van Lines shows moves typically cost 20 to 30% more than initial estimates. Create specific funds for predictable life events. Set aside money monthly for car maintenance, home repairs, and annual expenses like property taxes or insurance premiums. When these costs arise, you're prepared instead of reaching for credit cards. The goal isn't perfect prediction. It's building resilience for whatever comes next. Financial security grows from systems, not willpower. Part 2. Turning lessons into legacy. When Sarah finally paid off her last credit card in 2019, she did something unexpected. She kept the moment quiet. No social media posts, no celebration dinner. She simply sat in her kitchen, staring at the zero balance, wondering what came next. 3 years later, that private victory became the foundation for something much larger. A financial literacy program at her daughter's high school that has helped over 200 students learn basic money management before graduation. Your debt freedom story doesn't end with the final payment. The lessons you've learned, the discipline, the creativity, the resilience, represent knowledge that extends far beyond your personal balance sheet. Consider how your journey might serve others who are still struggling with the weight of financial stress. Dave Ramsey built an entire media empire from his own bankruptcy experience in the 1980s. His story resonates because it's authentic. He lived through the shame, the fear, and the grinding work of rebuilding. When you share your experiences, even in small ways, you offer something invaluable, proof that change is possible. Start with your immediate circle. Children absorb money attitudes from their parents' actions more than their words. If you've developed the habit of checking prices before buying, or if you now pause before impulse purchases, these behaviors become invisible lessons. Research from the University of Cambridge shows that children form money habits by age 7. Your transformation creates ripples in ways you might immediately recognize. Maybe your journey involved learning to say no to expensive social events. Share that skill with friends who express financial stress but continue overspending on entertainment. Sometimes people need permission to choose differently, and your example provides that validation. Communities benefit when individuals model financial responsibility. When you shop locally instead of accumulating debt at big box stores, when you buy used cars with cash instead of financing, when you choose experiences over possessions, you're quietly advocating for sustainable economic practices. Consider the broader systems that contributed to your debt. Was it medical bills, student loans, predatory lending? Your voice, informed by personal experience, carries weight in policy discussions. Elizabeth Warren's consumer protection work began partly from her research into bankruptcy patterns, real stories from real families facing financial crises. Document your journey. Write down the specific moments when everything clicked, the strategies that worked, the obstacles you overcame. These details become powerful tools for helping others. Your story doesn't need to be dramatic to be valuable. Sometimes the most helpful examples come from ordinary people who simply refuse to give up. The goal isn't to become a financial guru or fix everyone's money problems. It's about recognizing that your hard-won wisdom has value beyond your own life. When you model financial peace, mentor others, or simply have honest conversations about money, you're building something that outlasts any single debt payment. Part 3. Investing in your future. When Margaret finally paid off her last credit card, she faced a question that surprised her. Now what? After years of directing every spare dollar toward debt, the idea of investing felt as foreign as speaking a different language. Her $200 monthly payment had vanished, leaving her staring at her bank account wondering if she was ready for something she'd only heard other people talk about. Margaret's hesitation mirrors what millions feel after achieving debt freedom. The investing world appears designed to intimidate newcomers with complex terminology and get-rich-quick promises. Yet the most successful investors share a secret that Wall Street doesn't advertise. Boring consistency beats brilliant timing every single time. Consider John, a janitor from Vermont who invested $25 every month for 30 years in basic index funds. When he retired, his portfolio was worth over $500,000. No stock-picking genius, no insider knowledge, just the same amount most people spend on coffee, showing up faithfully month after month. The magic wasn't in the amount, it was in the relentless repetition. Your first investment move isn't choosing between stocks and bonds, it's building an emergency fund. Financial advisor Susie Orman calls this your sleep insurance. 3 to 6 months of expenses sitting in a boring savings account. Yes, the interest rates are terrible. That's the point. This money isn't meant to grow, it's meant to protect everything else you're building. Once your emergency cushion exists, employer-sponsored retirement plans become your best friend. If your company offers matching contributions, you're literally walking away from free money by not participating. Even contributing enough to capture the full match, often just 3 to 6% of your salary, creates an instant 100% return on investment. The beauty of automatic investing lies in removing emotion from the equation. Sarah, a teacher from Ohio, set up automatic transfers of $150 monthly into her retirement account. She forgot about it for 5 years until her annual statement arrived showing $12,000 had grown to nearly $15,000. "I didn't even miss the money," she laughed. It was like finding cash in an old coat pocket. Market volatility becomes your ally when you invest consistently over time. During market downturns, your fixed contribution buys more shares. When markets rise, those accumulated shares gain value. This dollar-cost averaging smooths out the emotional roller coaster that destroys most investment plans. The compound effect transforms small amounts into substantial wealth through patience. A 25-year-old investing $100 monthly at 7% annual returns would have over $250,000 by age 65. Starting at 35 with the same contribution yields about $122,000. The 10-year delay costs $128,000, more than double the actual contributions made during those missing years. Your debt repayment journey already taught you the most valuable investing skill: consistency despite discomfort. The same discipline that eliminated your debts will build your wealth, one unremarkable month at a time. Part 4. Your new money mindset. When Sarah looked at her bank statement 6 months after paying off her final credit card, something unexpected happened. She didn't feel the euphoria she'd imagined. Instead, she felt confused, like meeting a stranger in the mirror. The person staring back had negotiated payment plans, sold possessions, worked overtime shifts, and said no to countless invitations. Who was this disciplined woman, and what was she capable of next? Your debt journey didn't just change your bank balance, it rewired your brain. Neuroscientist Dr. Antonio Damasio's research shows that financial stress literally shrinks the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for decision-making and impulse control. Every month you stuck to your debt plan, you were rebuilding those neural pathways. You weren't just paying bills, you were becoming someone new. Consider what you've actually accomplished. You learned to delay gratification when every fiber of your being wanted instant relief. You discovered creativity you didn't know existed, finding money in forgotten subscriptions, negotiating better rates, turning hobbies into income streams. You developed courage to have uncomfortable conversations with creditors, family members, and yourself. Dave Ramsey often tells the story of a teacher who paid off $87,000 in student loans by selling plasma twice weekly for 2 years. She didn't just eliminate debt, she proved to herself that she could endure temporary discomfort for permanent change. That's not just a financial skill, that's a life skill worth more than the money saved. Your relationship with money has fundamentally shifted. Before, money controlled you through fear, shame, and scarcity thinking. Now you control money through planning, patience, and purpose. Tiffany Alich calls this financial wholeness, when your money decisions align with your values rather than your impulses. Think about the ripple effects. Children who grow up watching parents manage money intentionally are 40% more likely to develop healthy financial habits themselves, according to research from Cambridge University. Your transformation isn't just personal, it's generational. The skills you've developed extend far beyond budgeting. You've learned project management by coordinating multiple debt payments. You've mastered delayed gratification, a trait that predicts success in everything from relationships to career advancement. You've built resilience by weathering setbacks without abandoning your plan. What story do you want to write next? Maybe it's starting that business you shelved because debt payments consumed your energy. Perhaps it's supporting a family member through their own financial struggles, armed with hard-won wisdom rather than well-meaning platitudes. Or maybe it's simply living without the constant background hum of financial anxiety. Your new money mindset isn't about perfection, it's about possibility. You've proven that you can change deeply ingrained patterns through consistent action. That revelation changes everything about what you believe you can accomplish next. Chapter 5. Real Stories, Real Change. Part 1. The Turning Point. Sarah Martinez stared at her credit card statement in the parking lot of her daughter's preschool, watching numbers that seemed impossible. $28,000 across 4 cards. The monthly minimums alone exceeded her grocery budget. That Tuesday afternoon in March 2019 became the moment everything changed. Not because of the debt itself, but because her 4-year-old asked why mommy was crying in the car. The catalyst for financial transformation rarely arrives as planned. Michael Chen, a software engineer from Portland, reached his breaking point during a routine medical checkup when his doctor explained how stress was affecting his blood pressure. The connection between his mounting debt anxiety and physical health became undeniable. Within weeks of that appointment, Michael had consolidated his student loans and created his first real budget using the envelope method his grandmother had taught him decades earlier. For Jennifer Williams, a single mother from Atlanta, the wake-up call came through her teenage son's college dreams. When he mentioned wanting to study engineering, she realized her credit card debt would prevent her from co-signing any student loans. That evening, she spread every bill across her kitchen table and faced the truth. $43,000 in consumer debt stood between her family and their future. She started Dave Ramsey's debt snowball method the next morning, attacking her smallest balance first. Rock bottom looked different for David Park, a marketing executive who discovered his wife had been using food banks while he remained oblivious to their financial crisis. The shame of realizing his spending habits had pushed his family toward poverty created an immediate shift. David eliminated all discretionary spending and picked up weekend freelance work, applying every extra dollar to debt using the avalanche method to tackle high-interest balances first. Sometimes the turning point emerges from unexpected sources. Lisa Thompson's moment of clarity came through her 8-year-old's math homework about compound interest. Explaining how money grows over time made her confront how debt works in reverse. Every month of delay meant thousands more in interest payments. That homework session transformed into a family financial education project and the beginning of their debt-free journey. These stories share common threads despite their different circumstances. Each person experienced a moment when continuing their current path became more painful than changing it. The debt hadn't necessarily grown worse overnight, but something shifted in their perception. A child's question, a health scare, a family crisis, or simply mathematical reality becoming impossible to ignore. What made these moments transformative wasn't the size of the debt or the specific trigger, but rather the decision to stop avoiding reality and start taking action. Each person moved from passive worry to active planning within days of their realization. Your turning point might look completely different from theirs, but the principle remains constant. Change begins when staying the same becomes unbearable. The question isn't whether you'll find that moment, it's whether you'll recognize it when it arrives and choose to act. Part 2. Lessons learned on the journey. When Maria started her debt-free journey 3 years ago, she thought the hardest part would be saying no to restaurant meals and weekend shopping trips. She was wrong. The most difficult lesson came 6 months in, when she discovered that her carefully planned budget meant nothing if she couldn't handle the emotional weight of watching friends live seemingly carefree lives while she counted every dollar. The stories shared by those who successfully eliminated their debt reveal a common thread. The path is rarely what anyone expects. Take James, who paid off $47,000 in credit card debt over 2.5 years. He assumed his biggest challenge would be the math, finding extra money each month to throw at balances. Instead, his breakthrough came when he stopped trying to be perfect. I kept restarting every time I overspent by $20, he recalls. Once I learned to adjust and keep going instead of giving up completely, everything changed. Sarah's experience with the debt snowball method illustrates another critical lesson. Despite financial experts often recommending the avalanche approach, paying minimums on everything while attacking the highest interest rate first, she found that Dave Ramsey's snowball method worked better for her psychology. Paying off her smallest debt first, even though it wasn't the most expensive, gave her the emotional momentum to tackle larger balances. Seeing that first credit card statement show zero made me feel like I could actually do this, she explains. The mistake patterns are remarkably consistent across different income levels and debt amounts. Nearly everyone underestimated how long the process would take. Rachel thought she'd be debt-free in 18 months, but needed 3 years. However, she discovered something unexpected. The extra time taught her habits that prevented her from accumulating new debt. If it had been faster, I might have learned the mechanics but not the mindset, she reflects. Perhaps the most surprising revelation involves what actually motivates people long-term. Initial motivation, fear, embarrassment, or crisis rarely sustains the entire journey. Instead, people who succeed develop what Tiffany Alich calls financial wholeness, where debt freedom becomes part of a larger vision of security and choice rather than just escape from a current problem. The emotional component proves more complex than most anticipate. Several people described feeling guilty about their progress, worried that celebrating small wins meant they weren't taking their situation seriously enough. Others struggled with identity shifts. If being the broke friend had become part of their personality, who were they becoming as their financial situation improved? These real experiences reveal that the technical aspects of debt elimination, budgeting, payment strategies, interest calculations, represent perhaps 30% of the actual work. The remaining 70% involves developing new relationships with money, learning to tolerate discomfort, and building systems that work with human psychology rather than against it. Success comes not from perfection, but from persistence through imperfection. Part 3. From Scarcity to Security. Maria discovered the shift happened gradually, then all at once. After 18 months of aggressive debt payments, she realized she had stopped checking her bank balance with that familiar knot of dread. Instead of the mental math that once consumed her daily, calculating how many days until the next paycheck, whether she could afford groceries, she found herself making decisions from a place of choice rather than desperation. The transformation surprised her most when she declined a dinner invitation, not because she couldn't afford it, but because she preferred to cook at home and save for a weekend trip. The journey from financial fear to genuine security rarely follows a straight line. Research from behavioral economists shows that people who successfully eliminate debt experience what psychologists call cognitive liberation. The mental energy previously devoted to financial stress becomes available for creative problem solving and long-term planning. This explains why many debt-free individuals report feeling more confident at work, more present in relationships, and more willing to take calculated risks. David, a teacher from Oregon, describes the moment he realized his mindset had shifted. Standing in a grocery store, he noticed he was buying name-brand cereal without checking the price. This simple act represented something profound. He had moved from scarcity-driven decisions to value-based choices. The fear that had governed his financial life for years had quietly retreated, replaced by what he calls quiet confidence. Building this security requires more than mathematical progress on debt balances. It demands establishing new neural pathways around money decisions. When Jennifer started her debt elimination journey, she couldn't imagine spending $20 without calculating the impact on her monthly budget. 2 years later, she describes having developed financial intuition, an internal sense of what she can and cannot afford without the exhausting mental gymnastics. The transformation often begins with small acts of self-respect around money. Setting up automatic payments creates psychological distance from the shame of debt. Creating a small emergency fund, even $50, provides a buffer that changes how people experience unexpected expenses. These practices build what financial therapists call money resilience. the ability to handle financial surprises without emotional overwhelm. Perhaps most importantly, individuals who successfully transition from scarcity to security learn to separate their self-worth from their net worth. They develop what Ramit Sethi calls rich life thinking, understanding that true wealth includes time freedom, relationship health, and personal fulfillment alongside financial stability. This perspective shift proves more valuable than any particular debt repayment strategy, creating the foundation for lasting financial well-being that extends far beyond simply reaching a zero balance. Part 4. Inspirations for your own road. When Maria Gonzalez posted her debt-free scream on social media after paying off $73,000 in student loans, she included a simple message that resonated with thousands. You don't have to be perfect to start. You just have to start. This sentiment captures what dozens of debt-free individuals consistently share. The power lies not in having the perfect plan, but in taking the first imperfect step. Sarah Chen, who eliminated $45,000 in credit card debt while raising 2 young children, keeps a sticky note on her bathroom mirror that reads, "Progress, not perfection." She explains that this mantra saved her during moments when she felt overwhelmed by setbacks. "I used to think one bad spending day meant I'd failed completely," Sarah reflects. "Learning to treat mistakes as data points instead of failures changed everything." Her approach mirrors what financial coach Tiffany Alish calls financial wholeness, the understanding that money management is a practice, not a destination. The debt-free community consistently emphasizes starting where you are, with what you have. Marcus Thompson, who paid off $120,000 in combined student loans and consumer debt, began his journey with just $50 in his checking account. "I felt embarrassed that I couldn't even fully fund my emergency starter fund right away," he admits. But Dave Ramsey's principle of starting with any amount, even $25, gave me permission to begin immediately rather than waiting for the right conditions. Financial therapist Amanda Clayman notes that this start anywhere philosophy directly combats the perfectionism that keeps many people trapped in debt cycles. Real people who've achieved debt freedom didn't wait for higher incomes, perfect budgets, or ideal circumstances. They started with imperfect plans and adjusted along the way. The most powerful inspiration comes from understanding you're not alone in this journey. Jennifer Park, who became debt-free after initially accumulating $65,000 in various debts, emphasizes the importance of community. "Finding others who understood the shame and fear around money was life-changing," she shares. "We celebrated small wins together and normalized the struggle." These stories prove that debt freedom isn't reserved for people with perfect financial discipline or high incomes. It belongs to anyone willing to start where they are, learn from mistakes, and keep moving forward one payment at a time. Whether you're drowning in 6-figure debt or struggling with a few $1,000s, your journey matters just as much as theirs did. The path forward begins with your next decision, not your past mistakes.